Hey everyone, welcome to Drinks with Denise. Today I have made, this is my own specialty right now, lemon drops. I love lemon drops, but this is a, cheers. This is a lemon drop from 477 Distillery downtown. That's the gin it is, and I have added fresh lemons, a little bit of water, and a rosemary to have. What do you think?
It's delicious.
Awesome.
It's delicious.
And I'm here today with Rose Perez, and as you might know, we tried this yesterday and we had a little bit of difficulty with it, so we're redoing it, and we're actually doing this at Casa de la Garcia. So we'll be coming to you today from our own home.
Yay.
So thanks everybody, welcome to our home, and cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers, Rose. I don't know if I want to put it down because it's super refreshing. What do you think?
It is.
Very
It
tasty.
is.
All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So, first of all, thank you, Rose, for being here with us, and thank you for talking to us today about overcoming adversity. I know you very well because you're my daughter, but not only are you my daughter, but I also respect and think that you're such a great woman, and that I know everything in your life that you've had to overcome, and that's the reason why I wanted to share your story today. So thank you so much for sitting with me.
Thank you for having me.
So let's go ahead and start. Why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself?
So I am a wife, a mother, a daughter, a friend, a woman, my own person, strong, courageous, and independent.
Awesome. I'm so glad to hear you talk about yourself that way. It makes me feel so good. Well, I'm glad. I'm glad you are great at all of those things, just so you know. And I've always felt like you're the kind of person that, and I've always told you this too, that no matter what you do in your life, honey, God, I'm already going to get choked up. That no matter what you do in your life, you always do it to the fullest. And I think you probably remember a couple of conversations that we had while you were growing up, where I would tell you, no matter what you do, Rosie, whether it's good or bad, you're going full force.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad to see that over the last many years, you've been going full force forward, making yourself better. And I just really think that's great.
Thank you.
So I want you to share with us today about what has been your greatest loss. And I start there because I feel, honey, that your story is so strong about overcoming adversity, and that's why I'm starting with that question of what is your greatest loss so far in your life?
So my greatest loss would probably have to be struggling with addiction. That was a hard time in my life where, I made a lot of bad decisions, and decisions that weren't me, weren't who I was, weren't my full potential, obviously, and were really hard for me. It was a really hard time for me in my life, and, fighting addiction is, something that a lot of people deal with, and for the most part they deal with in private. It's a very private matter, because they're ashamed, because they're embarrassed, and most of the time you know who you are before you start dealing with addiction. So that had to have been the lowest time of my life, is dealing with that.
So I think you said to me in the first time that we did this that you really felt like you lost yourself.
Yes.
Like that, can you expound on that a little bit? Like, what was that loss? What do you mean you lost yourself?
So, well, I did go full force in my addiction, obviously, but I dealt with my addiction by myself for probably like 3 or 4 years before anybody actually even knew that I was, using or addicted. And I tried so hard to keep myself who I was, a good wife, or not a wife, but a good mother, a good daughter, a good sister. I tried to just keep up with that so much, and it was just really like draining to me because I wasn't that person anymore. I was losing that person through addiction. So, you know, that was more or less how I lost myself. That was more or less, I knew that I wasn't who I knew I was, you know, and I know we'll get into this later, but, you know, even when I first met my husband, RJ, my first response to him, and because he met me, you know, during, you know, the last portion of my struggle, and, you know, a slip up that I had, I guess you could call it, but anyhow, and I remember specifically telling him, like, this isn't me. This isn't who I am. And him, you know, his response being, this is who you are, though. And it hurts so bad to hear somebody else say that that's
like
who
acknowledge,
that I was like, oh no, this is, but I also think it pushed me in the right direction, because it helped me to open up my eyes that people really thought that's who I was, because I had been in that mess for so many years. So that's how I feel like losing myself in addiction really was. Yeah, what it really meant to me was just, you know, just bad decision after bad decision, bad choice after bad choice, and, you know, not caring about anything or about anybody, or, you know, I mean, I cared, but it was like, it was an internal battle.
Yeah, like a fight against yourself to be able to be like, do I care more about this or do I care more about my addiction at the time? And then if you did choose your addiction over the things that you truly did love, then you would just feel more. And I'm only saying that, honey, because I understand that portion. I don't know that it, you know, I wasn't in your shoes, but I've been in the shoes of, you know, not being able to make those good choices, and bad choice after bad choice, which just leads you to where you have no self-confidence. You feel so out of control.
Right.
So, yeah, I can completely understand that.
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit then about, you know, now knowing how losing yourself was such a big thing for you, because you knew who you were, you knew what you wanted to be. Now let's switch that around and tell me what your greatest win has been.
So, I have a lot of greatest wins, a lot of them, but, you know, graduating from high school was one of my biggest ones, because I was, you know, graduated with a 3.8 GPA. It was an amazing time in my life. I was on track, you know, college bound, all of those good things. So that was an amazing win. My children were obviously amazing wins, but my biggest win, as I told you yesterday, was my wedding to RJ. Like, that meant a lot to me.
So I know, because I was there, first of all, that it was an amazing wedding. And if you were able to participate in it, you know that it was beautiful and it was just the right size. And all of your closest friends, and even some of our closest friends, were there, and it was a great celebration. But you and RJ had already been together for a little while. You guys had were pregnant with Messiah.
No.
Or had Messiah. Had Kylie.
Yes, just had
okay.
Kylie. Yeah.
I don't know why I got so. Really do know all of my grandbabies. I know it seems like that sounded like I didn't know what the hell was going on in my life, but I do. Yeah. It was the lemon drop, just so you guys know. But anyway, so that was also something that was hard, because Kylie Rose was in the hospital.
Yeah.
You guys had been planning this wedding for 3 years.
Yes.
So what was it that made you guys decide to go ahead with a big wedding like that?
So, you know, for the people who were there, they know that it had a lot to do with mine and RJ's growing up, basically. And since I was a little girl, I always wanted a big wedding, always. Like, I was the princess dress, and, you know, that's what I always wanted, and that's what I got. But, you know, it was something that was very dear to mine and RJ's heart, and, you know, more so to mine, but RJ just wanted to make me happy, you know. And so, we went forward with having a big wedding, and we wanted to do things the right way too. Like, I remember we were already together. We had already had children, or going to have. Well, I think we already had children when RJ proposed to me in front of my whole family. But our biggest thing was making sure that all of our brothers, because we're both the oldest, so it was making sure that all of our brothers and sisters and our nieces and nephews, that they all seen what was the right way, what was the traditional, and not right way, I shouldn't say right way, but the traditional way of expressing love and showing that marriage is a real commitment. It's a lifetime commitment, and there's no better way to put a cherry on commitment than having a $15,000 wedding.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. We're in it for the long haul now. Sorry, you're not going anywhere.
Exactly. So, it was something that we both wanted since we were younger, and honestly, something that we both thought we were never going to have. If you knew our past and how we came into the relationship, we did everything half-assed backwards, so everything wasn't perfect. So,
which is a good setup for me, because one of these days we are going to have, because we do have a blended family and we have an amazing family, and all of our adult children are in relationships, and we're excited one of these times to share that with you guys. But I want to say that as us as your parents, that was something I think for us, I'm always proud of you.
Yeah.
You know that. But I think for me to be able to say that, hey, my daughter and her husband put all the money, we didn't have to do anything but show up. That was pretty cool. That was nice. Pretty cool. And I really just congratulate you guys, because I do know where you guys came from, and I do know what you guys had to sacrifice, and if I could share that with everybody, it would take much longer than we have today. But I just think it's amazing, and congratulations to you and to RJ, and you guys have been going strong now for 7 years or so? 7 years, and we love having, RJ and his family be a part of our family, and, it's been great for us, so thank you, honey.
Yes.
All right, so our next question for Rose is, what has been your biggest challenge in your journey?
So in my life, my biggest challenge was definitely when I came home from prison. I didn't have custody of my 2 oldest children, and that was a hard, situation for me, because I always had custody of them, and I always, was a great provider for them, and, I loved them more than anything. So that was a really, really hard, challenging time in my life, and, going through the whole process of being a convicted felon and coming out of the system, and basically not having that leg to stand on, like having people trust you, or with anything, not just with my kids, but with a job, or like I had said to you yesterday, I remember sitting down with my state parole officer, because I was on federal probation and state parole when I came home, and I remember sitting down with him and him telling me, I don't remember his name, that's how insignificant this person was in my life at the time, but he said 80% of people who come out of prison will go back. So when you mess up, I need to know, so that we can get you back into prison and get you, on a 6-month turnaround, and then you'll be back out. And I remember the feeling of sitting across from this man who didn't even look me in the eye. Like, he kept his head down the whole time. So
you were just a number, basically.
Kept his head down the whole time, telling me that I wasn't going to make it, never once looking me in the eye. And I remember, putting my hand on his desk and telling him, excuse me, sir, I'm not going to be the 80%. I'm going to be the 20%. And I won't be going back ever again. And, so that was a really challenging time in my life, having to be away from my children every single day. Like, I remember coming out and, we planned a surprise to surprise them. I don't know if you remember that, but you picked them up and they came upstairs and I had hid under the bed and, you know, it was 2 long years away from them. So it was really challenging for me. That was probably the hardest time of my life. And then on top of that, dealing with coming back into society and having a drug addiction and not knowing which way I was gonna veer at the end of the day.
And I think too, honey, like I said, I've never been in those shoes, but being a prisoner of your own mind, being a prisoner, you know, of other things, but I think too that when you came home and because we always talked about how easy it is to be good when you're in a box.
Yes.
You know, when somebody's telling you it's time to get up, it's time to eat, it's time, you know, you get a visitor for a couple of hours or whatever. When you have somebody doing that, it's very easy.
Yeah.
But having the stress of making those good decisions on your own, even though you knew in your mind and in your heart that those were the decisions that you were going to make while you were there, coming home and having that big of a responsibility, that's big.
Yeah.
That's a huge, and I would think, you know, that just watching you navigate through your life in that period of time, because it was a good year, 2 years that you had to go through the system. And
I got out in 2009 and I got out in 2011 and actually killed my number the following year. So it was in November of 2011, and then in 2013 actually is when I completely walked away from paper. So,
and that had to have been a huge accomplishment again for you. You know, because I know that you had the one probation officer who was very caring. He would come to the house and check on you and whatever. And then, like you said, with this other person who didn't even look you in the eye, who obviously just, you know, pushes people through.
Now that you mentioned that, I actually remember that I did mess up once. I remember, I don't know if you and Pops remember, but I did mess up one time. And, you know, we were like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? And I was like, I'm going to tell Edgar. Like, and that was you know, who I told. Right. And he was like, well, you're doing so well. There's no sense in us, you know, and federal probation overrode state parole. Yeah. So he was like, you know, what we're going to do is we're going to put you in more counseling classes and, you know, whatnot. So I actually think I was basically saved by the bell, but you know, it was a hard experience. But yeah, I had him who was more, you know, more understanding and didn't push me through like I was a number. He knew your name, he knew Pops' name, he knew the kids' names.
He really cared. Like, he really took the time to be a part of your recovery. And a part of your journey back into society and being where you needed to be. Yeah, I do remember, you know, just the ups and the downs of all of that. Not just you as, you know, coming out, but your support system. You know, like me and our relationship and the things that we had to go through that basically have made us and brought us to where we are today. So, I mean, I think we talked about the American dream, right? And that our American dream is different from most people's because of who we are and our dynamics and our family. Not that we didn't live the American dream or that we aren't living the American dream, because we've come a hell of a long way and we've done a hell of a lot in the short time that, you know, that we've been around. So I think that's great, you know, that we could go through that journey together, and that we also, as your support system, were able to move with you in the same direction and support you through all of that. So now that we've kind of talked a little bit about that, what was it like, honey, when you came out of prison and you had that stigma? Because of course it follows you, right? So now you've got the stigma of a young Hispanic Latina woman who went to prison, came out. Now you've got to get yourself back into society. How did you overcome that stigma, and what was it like for you to be that person?
Yeah. Well, the first, when I first came home, getting a job was absolutely horrendous. It was the worst, one of the worst experiences ever. I probably got about 25 to 30 no's before I got my one yes. And my one yes actually came from me knowing somebody, and everybody does. So like if you've been through this situation, you know somebody who can say, if you are a changed person, who can say, Rose is a good person. She has, a good work ethic, and she's a good mom, and this was just a mistake. This was just a mistake.
Yeah.
And so I had that person to do that for me, and I actually started working for the same county that convicted me. So I began, my first job out of prison was for Weld County government, and I worked as a flagger on the paving crew for the Public Works Department. And it was a pretty gratifying thing to, and it was something that always stuck with me, that my first job out of prison was for the same county that convicted me. So it was a nice thing for me. Yeah. But it was hard. I remember every day for at least about a month coming home just defeated, just completely defeated, like places that you would think would hire you in a heartbeat, and they would say, oh, you're too qualified, or you're underqualified, or you're, but you knew in the back of your mind that it was, the felony. Or some people would just straight up tell me, like, well, your felony is too, it's been too new for us to actually work with you, and we're really sorry. So that was a really hard time in my life. But even more so than that, I made a lot of decisions that were very drastic and changed my life completely. And, some that I'm proud of and some that I'm not very proud of, but neither here nor there. I'm very proud that I made it and that I did it because, I worked 2 jobs. I put myself through school. I didn't get any assistance from anybody because I didn't have my kids back. So I really had to bust my butt to get my own, my own home and my own car and, all of these things that I had to do on my own. And then again, like I said, put myself through school so that I can get my kids back and I could file all my own paperwork, because I went to school to be a paralegal. And that's how I got my kids back. I put myself, through school. At night, I would flag all day. And then at night, I would go to school. On the weekends, I had another job in Denver. And that's how I made it. That's how I made it happen. And, I fought really hard for my children back. I fought really hard for my life back. And
so I think what I hear you saying too, Rosie, and I just need to reiterate it because I think it's important for young women and young men who feel like, because it really is only a feeling, right? That defeat and that I want to just give up. I might as well go back to doing what I was doing because it's not happening fast enough. But what I think I heard you say is that you don't have to go back, but you do have to work hard. Yep. And you have to be determined. I heard this thing about motivation, and motivation only takes you so far. Determination is really what's going to get you there, because like you said, you had 25 no's before you even heard one yes. And that's true with anything, I think. You in any type of sales, and you're really basically selling yourself to get hired, to say, hey, I'm good for this job. You are going to hear that many no's. And so what I think I hear you saying again is just stick with it. Don't give up. It is possible, to make it. So super proud of that. I always want to, I always want to just like burst out into tears and start hugging you and, just cradle you and be like, wow, that's my little girl.